It's time for today's episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast, recorded in front of a slightly tipsy studio audience at world-famous Champy's Fried Chicken. We will have the latest on Georgia Bulldogs football, basketball, and recruiting. Watch live and send us your questions on the 11 Alive Sports page on Facebook. Be advised this podcast is off the record and not safe for work. Also, be sure to subscribe to the UGA Sports Live Podcast on iTunes and Google Play.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the UGA Sports Live Podcast. We are on the premises on Canning Day at Academia Brewing Company. Normally, we are at Champions on Baxter Street, which is a great place to go eat if you're in town. You want some great fried chicken, great tamales, great
the banana pudding.
The banana pudding. I mean, if you get a chance, swing by Champions. But if you're on, and that's if you're kind of the mid part of town, towards the east side of town. If you're out on the west side of town, you know, out by the Georgia Square Mall, come out to Academia Brewing Company. They are canning. They got the canning going on. They're going to have 4 different beers in cans today. The Skull has already come off the line. I think we got number 1 and number 2 cans off the line.
Love it.
Fresh and cold, and oh my God, it's fantastic. So, Coach, there are some perks to being in this business. So,
over 2,000 cans coming right out of their box here, and they're going to hit it all around this place.
And then they're all sold already. So, but now they'll have more here in the store. So if you come to Academia, you can get them here. Of course, you can get them at your favorite vendor in town. So be sure to look for Academia. They will have these wonderful beers for you. We've got a huge group coming in to have lunch. They have a chef on site here at Academia. It's not just a brewing company. It's also one of the best restaurants you can eat at in town. So we will definitely be sampling those wares before we leave here today. A lot to talk about. I guess we should introduce ourselves. I'm Rodney DeBulsey, the host of the show, joined by Jake Roos, the real host of the show, the guy that does all the work. And there's Coach Donnan, the person you are checking in to watch the show for, the former Georgia head coach, Hall of Famer, par excellence, the guy that knows everything, the guy who basically we built the show around because he's who you're here to watch. But we're going to start with Jake Roos, our recruiting guru, who spent last Sunday. How many hours were you out there?
Let's see. We got out there about 10, and we left around 5:30. So it was
7.5 hours of watching the region's best football players at the Nike opening regionals. You have in the last week or so, you've had 30 updates on Georgia recruiting targets. That's phenomenal, folks. That's why you go to UGASports.com, hint, and you sign up there, 27 cents a day, and you read all the stories they have. And before we even get into our advertisers and all that stuff, I want to jump right into what I thought was a big story right off the bat. Georgia's increasingly good relationship with Tate Ratledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you this.
Tell them who they are, because I love this kid.
All right, so Tate Ratledge, you're talking about a Rivals 100 guy. I'll pull up his exact
number 30
ranking. There you go.
Number 30 in the nation, which
could
be a 5-star before it's all said and done.
Definitely. Measured in at 6'7", 321 pounds. Down there in Stockbridge at the opening, and absolutely dominated the camp. And I'm talking about going against great competition. Miles Murphy, 5-star. Andy Boykin, 4-star. Nazir Stackhouse, 4-star.
Georgia commit.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about this guy was taking on everybody, all comers. Had a fantastic showing down there, and but had spent Saturday in Athens, taking it in with Sam Pittman and Kirby Smart. And really, I think the biggest thing that we took away from that, we've got the story up on UGASports.com, but what I found interesting were not his comments necessarily about Sam Pittman, but more so about Kirby Smart. And he said, really it's a relationship there where he's more of a mentor to me than he is a coach at this point. And he said, the things that we're talking about, I think really kind of set Georgia apart. And that was, like I said, a pretty impactful set of info for me. Looks like we may have lost internet here, but
he's definitely a guy you want as far as the tackle too. That's a premium. As hard as we talk about, as much as we talk about defensive linemen, big angular offensive tackles are hard to come by too. They can block these edge rushers.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about, angular. Yeah, that's a great word for Tate. A kid that, he told Trent Smallwood, they said if they get another tackle in this class, they want it to be me. And it looks like that's the direction that they want to go. I get it. Listen, you pair him and Broderick Jones, you're going to have as good of a tackle class as anybody in the nation.
I mean, the Broderick Jones, we've seen what Broderick Jones could do. Was he there?
Broderick was not. No, unfortunately. I really wanted to see him.
Yeah, we saw him at the Under Armour camp last year as a sophomore, and he was just throwing people around. And I remember speaking to him, and he says, yeah, I'm going to decide in a few months. And then, like, 4 days later, he was committed to Georgia. So I guess we're coming up on a year.
Yeah, just about.
For Broderick Jones to be – and I don't want folks to overlook Broderick Jones because this is your Isaiah Wynn, but bigger.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he is your Andrew Thomas, he is your Isaiah Wilson caliber offensive lineman. And then you got another one like that in Tate Ratledge here in Georgia. If you could pull two – I mean, you have two NFL caliber tackles in the same class, in the same state.
In a class where you need them, too.
An absolute – again, that's why we have a lot of kids we could talk about, but that's why I want to go straight to Tate Ratledge saying, look, after reading that update, you got to love Georgia's chances there.
What's the deal, though, about his mom liking the Vols?
Don't know. I do know that his.
What's the reason for that?
Well, they grew up. He's in Rome. He's a guy out of Rome, so they have those they have the North Georgia ties for sure. And it's I mean, there's definitely concern. He was going to go to Tennessee, in fact, this past weekend, and mentioned that, but said they were on spring break, so he kind of decided to push it and end up at UGA. And so, hey, huge props to Georgia for getting that kid in. Like I said, an absolute freak out there. The other day, I couldn't have been more impressed with what Tate Ratledge did. And frankly, like he said to Trent, I think Georgia's selling the idea this year that Andrew Thomas and Isaiah Wilson, if they play to the caliber that's expected, have a chance of going high in the draft. And it won't be a surprise to see either of those guys or both of them test the waters of the NFL.
That to me was one of the most interesting things that Sam Pittman told Tate. Apparently, according to Tate, he said that Sam Pittman says that if Isaiah Wilson plays like he did last year, I will have 2 first-round draft picks. And if you're in the NFL and you're looking at Isaiah Wilson, I mean, this is a guy we had him as a 5-star for a good reason. He's prototypically built like it. He had the redshirt year where he got acclimated. He had a great year last year. If he does that again, and now I'm not going to say he's predisposed to going to the NFL because that Isaiah Wilson comes down from Brooklyn, loves Georgia. He's a very bright guy. It would not stun me to see him stick around to get his degree, but he'll be able to finish it whenever he wants. But I think that it's smart to prepare for the fact that a guy like that could go early. If you're going in the first round, you need to go. And all of a sudden, like you said, in an area of need for Georgia, they need to replace 2 tackles.
Yeah. Well,
and they're even trying Jamari Sawyer out at tackle just to get bodies out there right now. So
well, and you mentioned the idea of him testing it out. I think that it's not. I mean, that should be expected in this day and age. I mean, if you've got your 3 years in and you play up to that caliber, if he plays like he did last year, yeah, maybe it's worth checking out. I think I would be. It's advice I'd give him, to be honest with you.
Well, it's a given now, and we talked about it on our show last week from Champies that roster management is going to be even more important than it's ever been now with the caliber of guys that we have on our team that have the chance to not only play early but also go out early into the draft, and you add that transfer element when guys aren't playing. It's just hard to maintain your 85 because you can't take but 25 at a time. So all of a sudden you lose, a big junior group go out, and then a lot of guys graduate, and then some guys transfer. I mean, you lose 30 guys. How are you going to replace that many? I mean, it's hard to do, and that's something we got to project and be ready to look for. And that's the good news going with the bad news going with the great news that we recruit so well.
Well, and I think too. Look, I don't think Andrew Thomas, as well he shouldn't be, or Isaiah Wilson for that matter, is scared of competition. But you got to know that there are guys in the back or in that same room with you that are hungry, that are pushing for your spot, that are coming for it. And it's not a situation where I expect that either of those guys would get overtaken. It's just, I see the lure for the NFL. Go test it out. You don't want to put yourself in a position where, hey, maybe a Jamari Sawyer comes in and jacks your spot. All of a sudden you go from starter to second string. And now, hey,
the Elijah Holyfield model
exactly.
is what you're
I
referring
don't
to.
see that happening at tackle on our team.
Oh, I agree.
But maybe guard. It's we have a preponderance of guards, but I think the big thing for us is as you mentioned, we've got to develop. If we had something happen like last year, where all of a sudden, Andrew goes down and then Cade's ready to go against South Carolina, he comes in there. Cade can play everything. Hill can play everything, but they're really trying to master him at center because he's such a dominant guy inside. But that gets back to the recruiting part, and let's keep on talking about it. Tell me about Miles Murphy there. That's one I can't wait to hear about.
Yeah, Charles Kaiser also says, what's the update on Miles Murphy and Brian Griese? We'll definitely touch on Miles. I spoke to Miles. I handled that one on Sunday, so I was up close with him. Listen. Don't shoot the messenger. I just don't feel good about Georgia's chances right now.
Well, tell us, everybody, in case somebody's on a different planet, who he is.
Well, okay, so a 5-star defensive end out of Hillgrove High School down there in Marietta. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's like number 11 in the nation, but I'll have to double-check.
I saw Miles last year. I went to one of his games, and again, he was a sophomore at the time. He's just throwing people. It wasn't last year before. As a sophomore, he's just flinging people around. Even when the game was out of hand, they kept him in. A lot of times, you pull your starters when you're up. He stayed in the entire time, and it was a testament
to
you
were there, though.
It was a testament to his win.
He thought you were eating it. He just wanted to make sure you – no, go ahead. I got a best. He said, that guy was supposed to be watching me. He's over getting some hot dogs.
Eating hot dogs and hamburgers the whole time. To me, it's always a testament to see a lineman stick it through to the end of the game and still be going as hard on that 38th snap as he did on the first one.
Absolutely.
In a game that doesn't matter, it was out of hand. I don't even remember if they were winning or losing, but the game was far away, and he was still dominating. And I was just impressed to see a guy keep going. It's a testament to his motor, his drive. And I'm like, I don't know where this kid's going to be ranked, but at 6'5", 260 pounds at the time, he's going to be ranked really highly, and sure enough, we have him as a 5-star now.
Number 11 in the nation.
There you go.
Number 2 in the state. Number 2 at his position at strong side defensive end for the class of 2020. 6'4", 255. Came out, absolutely put on a show. Listen, my favorite battle of the day was Miles Murphy versus Tate Ratledge. Getting to watch those two go at it was a pleasure.
But they don't ever show him doing a drive block. It's just pass pro, right?
Yeah, it's all pass pro. And so, now,
it's better than nothing.
Yeah. But Miles, listen, it's just about the comments and the things that he's focused on. And I think that I'm getting the sense, at least from talking to him, that the focus for him is more so on the educational front than it is on football, because he knows, look, you're going to play big football wherever you go. When you're Miles Murphy, you got your pick of the litter. You can play anywhere. He's going to be an impact maker wherever he goes. I don't doubt that either. So he's got to start weighing it by, okay, well, where does it make the most sense for me to go then from an educational standpoint? And right now, it sounds like Clemson has got a big edge there. Auburn as well, the engineering programs very much helping those guys out in that regard. He's a guy who really is interested in that field. And I think that's something that's giving them a very strong edge.
Well, here's what you do, though, and for those fans out there that get involved in why do you do this, if you know a guy has that kind of interest, then you put that bug in his ear quickly. Hey, we've got a really good engineering school, and they know some of the schools that he's going against. That's probably not as strong a feel for. That's something that Georgia. We can certainly get a degree, and the thing I always told every kid here was, hey, get your undergrad, but anybody's going to be anybody in engineering got to get a graduate degree too, so you're going to take that base that you get at Georgia and go on. But I think that's something that's hit this kid reading what you wrote, which, they put that in his mind, hey, and that starts comparing it to everything else. It's like you go someplace in the first weight room you see, hey, and you tell them, somebody else has got a horse manure weight room, so, hey, when you go over there, you make sure you look at their weight room and think about how you're going to get better lifting weights there, whereas you can do that. Now, that's not negative recruiting. That's just pointing out or You tell the kid
It's negative recruiting.
You
It's
tell
okay.
the kid to go to Vanderbilt when he goes, hey, check that big crowd out. They got their tailgating while you're up before the game.
I also think that I think he's looking at Georgia's defense.
I agree. I think so as well.
He's a 4-3 defensive end. Georgia runs a lot more 3-4 and nickel.
And he says, hey, I want to keep standing up. That's what I want to do.
But Clemson doesn't run a 4-3,
You're
and
right.
neither does
You're right.
Auburn.
You're
Look
right.
at them.
Just
I mean,
saying.
when have they ever run that?
No, I agree. Now, I will say, Clemson has had – I think Clemson's success on the defensive line has been very impactful in this recruitment.
No question.
I think that's one of the biggest selling points for him as well. Look, the fact of the matter is Trent Thompson did not get drafted.
No.
A former #1 recruit in the nation, a 5-star guy. You're talking about
that was on him, though, but it doesn't
You're right,
matter.
you're right.
It doesn't matter.
You're right. Jonathan Ledbetter is going to the draft this year. Came out as a 4-star. Where will he fall in the draft?
Mm-hmm.
It's just been a while since Georgia had a guy that they put out into the draft.
Yeah, just like when we talk to these premier running backs, all these 5-star running backs, they've said, look, in the Super Bowl you had Georgia backs going head-to-head. They point to Nick Chubb, Rookie of the Year candidate, Sony Michel, Rookie of the Year candidate. They point to Todd Gurley. All those guys in the NFL that are making it much easier for you to be a top flight, running back school when you can't point to recent success. And I mean in the last 6-7 years.
But even in that regard, you're still living off of the work of A.J. Green at the wide receiver position based on what he's doing in the league.
Yeah, you're living off Justin Houston. Come on.
But that's going, that's
– But that's my point.
Right.
Hey, where's Gino Atkins?
Right,
You got to point back to guys who were in their third or fourth contract.
Absolutely.
Where's the guy that was signed last year?
Yep.
Now it's going to help you with Roquan Smith.
Yep.
Hey, come to Georgia, be a linebacker. All of a sudden, who do you get? Nakobe Dean.
Yeah.
Again, success in the NFL draft equals success everywhere else.
Absolutely. There's
David
no question.
Pollock was the last D lineman we had that was drafted in the first round.
Seriously.
I mean, I
Is
promise
what it
you.
is. Is what it is.
Ask my man over there, Dave. Check it, Dave.
So Georgia, I will say this. Miles made mention of all the academic, the idea of playing at a school that was good in engineering. But he mentioned, and I'll read you this quote from our story, even though this is a premium story. He says,
"Don't give away the
says,
store."
For Georgia, I've never been to their academic facilities, so that's probably what I want to do on the next visit. I'm going to have to differentiate each by their academic facilities. So you better believe Georgia's going to move him into the Rankin Center and set him up a cot when
I
he gets
promise you, when he
campus.
comes in here, that'll be impressive to him because we don't take a back seat to anybody on academic
I'll mention this.
tutoring and all that.
I've seen Georgia do this. They will bring in the dean of whatever school they're interested in. That dean will spend the day with them.
Yeah.
It is a all-hands-on-deck situation.
If he likes football. You don't bring in the dean.
Yeah, this is true. But there are a lot of them that do, and I want to give a shout-out to the Georgia academic staff, the professors, the tenured professors who have no, they don't have a dog in the fight. They don't have to come do this, but they will come in on one of their Saturdays or one of their Sundays and spend time with a kid who is, looking at certain things in academics, and the Kirby Smart's recruiting staff over there has a very good relationship with a lot of those deans, top professors, tenured professors, saying, look, we got a kid that's interested in engineering. We have one that's interested. Who was the one that wanted to do, they had a marine kid wanted to do marine biology. They had the one that was interested in reptiles. And they bring in different professors who match up with these kids and say, look, if you come to this school, here's what our vet school is like, And they give them a customized academic approach other than just, we got good tutors. So they do go above and beyond. So I think that the more interesting update will be after Miles Murphy comes to UGA and goes through the academic process. The fact that he's coming back to visit is big news.
Here's the deal, though, that's just unbelievable if you just really catalog this. Here's a kid that's a junior in high school, rising senior. He's been to all these places. He's making all these comparisons. 5, 10, 15 years ago, the first time a guy would ever even think about doing that would be on his official visit his senior year, probably in January of his senior year.
Yeah.
Now these kids are a year and a half, 2 years ahead of schedule on all these things, And, boy, you better be on point. You know, if you lose a guy because somebody's talking about their engineering school over here, I mean, as compared to having 2.5 years to get ready for them and have that one visit, now they're making 2 or 3 to each school. And, boy, you better make some hay when they're over here. I mean, I think that's even though the old coach brings it up, I think that's something we got to look at from the standpoint of these guys are, you know, Tate was over here, and anytime you can get him on campus, and I've told you this, and I really believe it, I think Kirby's as good as anybody out there when you get him one-on-one right there, because he's selling his school. He's got that advantage. You know, this is where he went to school. His wife went, he knows the ins and outs, and he really believes in his mantra. He believes in his plan, and, boy, and his age, he relates to him too. I mean, the guy's, 42 or 43? I mean, he can.
He's younger than me, and that's why I hate him.
He's got good phone skills too. He's good on the text, and so that's a lot we got to work on with Murphy. But he is an in-state school kid, and we do have a need for him from an athleticism standpoint. You don't know how big he's going to be and all that, but. Boy, it's good to hear about all these guys.
I want to switch gears here real quick. You want to talk about – well, first I'm going to give a shout-out to Athens Ford for being a big sponsor of our show. Aaron Overhead Doors also being a big sponsor of the show. 365 Game Day for, you know, letting us share the show on their website. Europie and the big success they had recently with Pi Day. And, of course, Cable East for sponsoring the show. And we'll mention these guys later on. But we're talking about major players in the state. Players at a position of need.
Yeah.
Guys who have a good relationship with Georgia, guys who Georgia's trying to catch up with. I also want to mention Arik Gilbert.
You're not playing catch up there.
Is he rated number one?
He's the number one
athlete in
the
America.
nation. He's 6'5".
But I mean, you said that Murphy was 2 in the state. Who's 1?
I believe it's Gilbert.
Yeah.
He's in terms of the players in the state. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask you.
Yes, that is correct.
But does he seriously? The guy makes your mouth water.
He's unbelievable.
He
he's as close to. I mean, he looks like an NFL athlete right now.
He does.
You know, it's and I'm not saying that he's ready to make the jump, but in terms of physical readiness for the next level, you're not going to find.
He's a taller Orson Charles.
Yeah, you're not going to find many kids that look better than Eric on the hoof. But definitely, like you said, a position in need, and really came out there, showed out at the opening. Great hands. Can't believe how fluidly he moves, coming in and out of routes and coming in and out of cuts. Yeah, absolutely.
That has changed a lot.
The more he's, you know, even from last year at Rivals Camp, he was still kind of working some of the kinks out.
He was clunky. Call it what it was.
Not now.
No.
He's
the point.
Smoothed it out.
Last year after the Rivals Camp, I said this kid, Arik Gilbert, needs to switch to be a defensive end. He's a first-round defensive end, but he's determined to play tight end. And, Coach, you're like, you could just imagine the offensive and defensive guys fighting over this kid when they get him there. Both sides want him. And I could just see, Glenn Schumann and Dan Lanning saying, hey, come to our side. Come to the dark side. Like you mentioned last week's show, you see that coach over there talking to a kid, hey,
they're
why
going to
don't
be
you
hanging
play
around
our
him
side?
at breakfast.
And then Todd Hartley trying to keep him as a tight end. But after seeing this kid work out at tight end, I'm like, give me my crow. This kid is going to be,
I completely agree. I was on the same train. I thought that his best position was going to be to transition to defensive end. And look, it may very well still be. I think he could be an absolute force there if he wanted to be. But he's focused on tight end, and I'll tell you, kudos to the young man for putting in the work to get better at that position and to really elevate his game to where everybody hoped to see it. And there's no doubt he's going to be a weapon.
He gets to play in a system where he can develop. Let's just say you're playing on a high school team that runs the wishbone like Fitzpatrick did, over there. And, they don't throw the ball a whole lot, so you don't practice that. This kid plays in an offense where they really move him around, use a lot of different things. Bailey's throwing the ball to him in practice so much that you can develop those skills and get a lot better at it. But two guys I wanted to ask you about that are committed to us, Stackhouse and Burrows, how did they look?
Yeah, so big showing. I thought for both of them.
Look
I thought. Now,
my wife said they're going to be talking about recruiting today. You don't know hardly anything. so I read our website.
Yeah, there you go. See, even Coach Donnan brushing up with UGA Sports. No, I thought that of the two of them, now Stackhouse, in my opinion, is a little bit more impressively built. I think that he's got the better frame,
especially height.
Yes, absolutely. But still some work to do there. I think that he's a guy who's still developing as a player. I think that he's not there yet. Jamil Burroughs, to me, he does have some bad weight. He's a little chunky and he's a little short. But my God, can that kid fly to be that size? He's a bowling ball, and we hear that phrase used a lot with running backs, and people said that about Maurice Jones-Drew, and whatever. This guy is that on the defense and as a nose guard. I mean, he is a tackle who comes off the ball. And then he throws down the spin move, and you can't believe it.
How tall is he?
Burroughs he's probably, I'd give him 6'2.5", maybe.
Well, it's not fair to have him in a position there where you look at his height compared to Stackhouse.
Yeah, right. Sure.
He's close to 6'5".
Yeah.
I always like those guys that were quick. They could, disrupt the play on the center and disrupt the whole deal there. There's a real good. I mean, everybody likes a big angle, big guys that can take on blocks and all that. But the quickness in the D line helps you too, and that gives you a little bit of a change up. And boy, I tell you, his motor runs really hard. And I know in talking to our recruiters that have the area, it's just a very good player that really loves Georgia too. So I think that's going to help him too. The fact that he's just such a dynamite at the point of attack guy.
Yeah, and he's been a big advocate, like you said, for Georgia. He's taken some other visits, and rightfully so. He has certainly earned that opportunity, but it's going to be hard, I think, to get him swayed away from Georgia. Reminds me a lot of Grady Jarrett, personally.
That you stole my guy there. That's exactly who I was going to mention. Grady Jarrett, who just got the franchise tag from the Atlanta Falcons, another graduate from Conyers, went to Rockdale County High School, the greatest high school in the history of America.
It's hard for you to talk right now when you
they're bringing out all this food.
They're sitting food down in front of you.
Oh my God! Just hand me that. Oh my Lord! Oh wow! The food here is phenomenal.
Yeah, let's hurry and wrap this up.
Yeah, we're going to cut the show about a half an hour early. When we first mentioned the show, I mentioned that we are in Academia Brewing Company. They have a restaurant here. They actually have a chef on site. So when you have a guy that's actually – it's not just line cooks back there. They actually have a chef. They do pairing meals, where they say, okay, we're going to have 5 courses and we're going to have a beer paired up with each one. They do amazing things here. Follow them on Facebook, and you'll get a heads up on all the stuff they do. Best scallops I've ever had in the world, and I've had them in Egypt. I've had them in Europe. I've had them in the West Coast.
You're just flexing on us
now.
I'm
just saying, I love scallops. I've had them all over the world. The best scallops I've ever had have been in Athens, Georgia, at Academia Brewing Company. I'm just going to tell you, they don't have them all the time, but when they do, they're just phenomenal. So
what do we got here with different kinds of dogs or what?
I think these are the Cerebus sandwiches. I think this is it's got 3 kinds of meat loaded up with the sauce, some cheese in there. The fries are great as well out here.
I noticed right.
I got 2 sets of fries here. Let me be a good co-host here and hand them over. So
hey, that's amazing, man.
Yeah, they do the garlic fries here. It's
beautiful.
No. I had a point to make when I forgot
that point about these.
I think it's something about.
I was mentioning Grady Jarrett at Rockdale County High School. Now, to your point with Burroughs, if you can get a guy like that, Georgia passed on Grady Jarrett, and I get it. He was short.
Make amends.
There are some short people that come out of Rockdale County High School who are worth more than their height. Raising my hand here, but no, I really like Jamil Burroughs. I think he's gonna be a fantastic player. Speaking of fantastic. When you get a chance, if you are in town and you come by Academia Brewing Company to get your wonderful meal, they're canning 12,000 cans today. So by the time we leave the show or leave the place today, there will be 12,000 new cans of Academia Brewing Company beer on the premises. Most of it sold. Most of it's going out to stores.
It's amazing how many people are eating in here,
yeah,
too.
The place is absolutely packed. So when you get a chance, swing by that. But after lunch, go down to Athens Ford and get yourself a new vehicle. You can get the 2018 Ford Focus for $13,215. So, and under 13.5, you can get a 2018 last year's Ford Focus, brand new. This isn't an old one. This is a brand new Ford Focus, normally $21,000, now down to 13. 21 to 13, $8,000 off. I mean, I don't know what else I can tell you besides that. Brand new Ford Focus. I've driven one of those. It's a great car. If you want you want something a little bit bigger, what I drove out in Indianapolis, the 2018 Ford EcoSport, it is now $6,500 off. It went from $24,000. It's now to $17,495. If you don't want to spend that much, you can finance it for 0% for 60 months. Same with the Ford Focus. So you can get either the Ford Focus for $13,200 or the Ford EcoSport for $17,500. Can't beat it. If you want something even bigger, but you don't want to spend a bigger paycheck, you can go with the Ford Escape. And this is a 2019, not a 2018. A brand new this year, 2019 Ford Escape.
Straight off the line,
Straight off the line, $18,850 or 0% financing for qualified buyers for 60 months. So you can get for under $19,000, you can get a Ford Escape, a fantastic vehicle, 2019 for under 19. If you can't remember it, go 2019 for under 19.
There you go.
60 months financing if you want to do it that way. You cannot beat those deals out of Athens Ford. They all come with a lifetime powertrain warranty. They come with the best service. They come with a fantastic buying experience. You're not going to get pressured. You're not going to get hassled. You're not going to have people bugging you. It's going to be almost like the service here at Academia. You just walk in and boom, it's all right in front of you. It's
your
fantastic.
family.
Yeah, your family. So.
Our research department, Dave McMahon, hit us with this. We were talking about D-line drafted for Georgia. First rounders. It's been since 2005, so 14 years.
14 years.
David
Jeez.
Pollock, and even he played linebacker when he was in the NFL. Before that was 03, Jonathan Sullivan, 6th overall. Charles Grant in 02, and then 01 you had Richard Seymour and Marcus Straub.
Who recruited those guys?
I don't know. But I do know this. It sounds like every one of them, but it's really bad, but it's the truth. But I would tell you this, that what I feel good about over in Atlanta too, with both Burrows and Gilbert is, Coach McGee's the lead recruiter on those guys, and of course Hartley helped with the tight ends, and I'm sure Scott with the D lineman. But well, I tell you, he's got a phenomenal record of closing guys in the Atlanta area. I mean, he's just a great recruiter.
Last 10 years, D-line drafted from Georgia: D'Angelo Tyson, Gino Atkins, Cade Weston, Jeff Owens, Jarius Wynn. Last 10 years. So
and not a lot of impact on those guys. I mean, you got Gino did well.
D'Angelo's still hanging around the league, I think.
He is.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Jarius Wynn may still be somewhere.
Really?
I don't know about Cade Weston and Jeff Owens.
But point being, I love those guys. Not taking a shot. I'm just saying they're not the names these kids are going to know.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I know Gino Atkins. Gino's one of the best in the league.
I think
750 Pro Bowls for him.
One of your, a guy who didn't make this list, wasn't drafted, but is still in the league and has gotten several contracts. Avery Jones, a guy who has been very impactful in that regard. But again, not going to have that name recognition with these young kids,
and it hurts. I mean, let's just call it what it is. So, but we're going to
changing though. We're going to
I'm about to say you're going to see more wide receivers. You won't have to hang your hat on AJ Green anymore. You're seeing guys in the secondary show up.
Chris Conley too. I mean, he's coming on.
You got him. When you have your guys in the secondary with DeAndre Baker going in the first round, now all of a sudden, what you get Tariq Stevenson.
Now you've all of a sudden you've got a Thorpe Award winner who's going to go in the first round, just like you had a Butkus Award winner go in the first round. Yeah, those things add up.
That's
people pay attention.
Yeah, so it happens. It's out there. You just got to get them. So.
Cornwash as well, says Ronnie Brown.
Oh, yeah. Cornelius. Biggest hands I've ever seen.
Like an ottoman. But he was also a free agent, Ronnie points out.
It's been a while since Georgia – when's the last tight end Georgia had go out?
Ooh,
you get Isaac Nada this year, which I think should be big.
Sure. Prior to him –
big, tall guy that played for the Falcons. He played for Phoenix, too. I can't remember.
Damn it, you're right. I'll have to think of that one.
Orts is still out there, but I mean it's been a while. So
yeah,
I think, and again,
Leonard Pope.
Yeah, but the point being, like you said, it's changing. You know, you get Isaac, he goes early, and all of a sudden, you know, he's going to make a splash wherever he goes. So I think you start building up those other positions, and it's not just running back you. It's, hey, NFL you. Because Georgia has so many guys in the NFL. Let's point them out.
Yeah, and you're also going to – I mean, you're about to start making, I think, some serious headway. Wait till these Sam Pittman offensive linemen start hitting it.
Exactly.
That's going to – Ben Watson, Leonard Pope, Orson Charles, all got mentioned here by our watch. C.J. Oren says Nakobe will win the butt kiss before he leaves. C.J. putting it on record today. I like it. He also points out, he says, I don't know what heaven looks like, but I bet that brewery has got to be close. As far as I'm aware, this is what it'll look like.
Yeah.
So.
Come on.
And I'll have one of my old dogs. That'll be it. That's all I need is Vivi.
There you go.
My old Samoyed. We got that, then we're here. And Grandma's cornbread somewhere, and then we've made it. So, what else?
You know what I think's good? The 2 times we've been here to do a live show, and just as a kind of a nice deal for some of these people that listen that have office groups and everything, just bring your whole group out here to lunch and treat them like we're seeing some people do. I mean, there's some big groups out here, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Taking their looks like they're taking their staffs out to lunch, and you got what?
I ain't doing that.
Nope. I knew you would. But I mean, seriously, I just thought about it's a good idea. You got such a great environment, and if you want to let them have a few brewskis, you can, and let's take off the afternoon. But you also got the great.
That's what I'm talking
all
about.
All the TVs and everything, and maybe Friday would be a good day to do it. Just bring them out here.
Yeah. There you
go. We do have Georgia's football practice this afternoon.
Yep.
We just got the update on when we can go out there. We're actually going to get able to see some practice today. They closed practice Saturday.
Don't be busting everybody. You got 15 minutes the other day, man.
I got seven and a half.
Big takeaways.
So many
big
pictures.
Takeaways from the two, because obviously we were on last Wednesday, so we didn't get to recap Thursday's practice. The first 2 practices, anything that's particularly caught your eye? I mean, I know we did some quick observations on Wednesday, but
to me, I think that Dwan Mathis is going to be a project.
I agree.
It's not a shot against him. I just think that he's going to learn it. Glad to have Stetson Bennett back there. Jake Fromm looks phenomenal.
I think project is the wrong word. I think it's just the fact he's not as far along as the previous guys at this point, and it'll come around.
That's much more fair to say.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep it concise. I think that Georgia's wide receiver group is going to be fine. I think Demetrius Robertson has toughened up. They put out a video after Saturday's practice showing all these guys in pads.
Looks big,
doing his Oklahoma drills. Bigger. He's running through some people. This is not the finesse Demetrius Robertson that we've seen in years past. I think that I'm still predicting that he is maybe your biggest contributor this year. I like seeing Jeremiah Holloman out there.
Looks great.
Tyler Simmons, who got in a little trouble this weekend, I think he's going to be fine. I think Georgia's wide receivers group is going to be good. Worried about tight ends, like we mentioned last week. You're just kind of thin there. The offensive line is nasty. I mean, I don't know how DeAndre Swift doesn't, barring injury, how DeAndre Swift doesn't have 1,000 yards easily. Defensive line is thin because you got 3 guys out.
Sure.
You're moving guys around over there. The outside linebacker group looks phenomenal. The inside linebacker group is coming along. The secondary is going to be disgusting.
Yeah, and
that's just my overall take. Is like, hey, you've got a few areas that you're thin. The areas where you are thick are ridiculously thick.
What gets me about the secondary group and just watching those guys, and I think it's a lot different from it's definitely a lot different from when when Kirby and the staff came in here, but just how many guys there are out there. They have got options in the secondary. So if a guy starts struggling, look, hey, you better know there's somebody nipping at your heels. There's dudes waiting for opportunities, and they look good too.
And I would say this, though, from my perspective, the one thing that really looks good to me is the fact that our offensive line is so good and physical and big, but our D-line, the little time I've been out there, and our inside presence with backer and all, have held up against the run better than I thought they would at this point because of the newness of some of the backers and all that trying to fill in. But I'd say at this point I would have thought that, it's only the first day in pads, but I would have thought the offensive running game would have
run all over them.
And who's to know, because I didn't go out there that day, but I just watched the first day, but I just like the way our defensive front fits the blocks. They seem to know a lot more. I'm talking about the front seven. They seem to be a lot more cohesive at this point, starting out the spring than last year. We'll see, but that's something that makes me feel pretty good.
Well, and
I worry about running back depth because Harrian's a good player and Cook's a good player, but still remains to be seen when the band's playing. How are they going to be able to play like the running backs that have played here the last few years? You know, you're replacing two great ones from 2 years ago, and then Holyfield was just money making big yardage when you had to. So hopefully White's going to come around, and you know, the big kids coming in from Florida. But I'd say two areas there, tight end and running back, that do not have the depth that we've had at Georgia lately.
I want to ask you this, because you mentioned, you know,
I'll just glossed right over that.
Well, no. I wanted to touch on something you said, which was how those guys have held up, how the defensive line and the middle of the defense have held up against this offensive line. Roddy mentioned, look, you're a little light in numbers right now on the defensive line. Obviously, you got 3 guys out. You got reinforcements coming in June as well, so you got 3 more guys. You'll be adding them. How important and how impactful do you think, Coach, that it can be for these guys that they're going up against an offensive line of this caliber?
It's survival. I mean, you're getting challenged by your head coach who has a defensive background, and, you know, we had some trouble stopping the run last year. So that's been a real focus of our off-season program, lifting weights, everything else. Hey, short yardage and goal line, red zone defense, stopping the run. So these guys are ready to roll on it. Now, whether they'll be able to do it remains to be seen, but I do like the emphasis put on it, just like, you know, you're talking about havoc, about rushing the passer and all that. There is no question we got guys on the edge that are going to be able to do that, and I think we're going to cut them loose a little more because their secondary has the ability to play maybe more man coverage than they did besides just a guy like Baker on the outside. Now you're going to have a whole secondary capable of that. So, you know, people worry about pass rush, but realistically, last year we were defending the pass a lot more than we were attacking it because we had to protect our back end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I want to mention something about I spent the second practice that we got out there. I went down and watched new defensive backs coach Charlton Warren. And if ever there were a military guy from the Air Force, you know, you expect coaches to be brusque sometimes, you know, and to bark orders.
Tom Izzo.
Yeah. This guy, I liked at one point, he told him, the guy, he had his cornerbacks lined up and he was making them go through drills. And he explained he wanted to turn one way, turn the other way, and then do something else. And a couple guys didn't quite catch it. Well, that was their fault. They weren't paying attention. And he's like, I explained it. You better learn it. I'm not going to repeat myself. You pay attention. And you think about it, he's going to be barking orders. These kids they learn to hang on his every word because you're going to do the drill wrong. And he had the guys out there in these cuffs, the cornerbacks. And there were these like neoprene cuffs so that when they came off, you know, they work keep their hands together, keep in front so they're not getting overextended. And he had them switching up. He ran a bunch of drills I haven't seen before, you know, and his militaristic approach to this. He's like, I don't know what you guys are used to, but this is unacceptable. They weren't going fast enough. He crams so many reps into the time allotted, and he is so precise on it. You know, again, I don't know if he's a great coach or not. I'm just saying that it was a very interesting take, a little different than the Mel Tucker thing. Now, Mel Tucker's not going to put up with anything either, but I'm just saying it was a very interesting 10 minutes to watch this guy run his drills, and you got to think that that's going to pay off when he's on the sideline and he's yelling to one of his guys to, you know, switch. They're going to have that voice. They're listening for that voice because he's not yelling. He's just ordering.
Well, and I think that you touched on something very interesting, which is that you've seen a lot of drills that you haven't seen before with this group. I noticed him. I overheard him saying to the group, he was like, how many of y'all play basketball? And he's taking it back to fundamentals, you know, and that's where he's trying to, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's the new guy. He wants to come in, show his bona fides, certainly, but also too, he's got his own philosophies, and he wants to instill that in those guys as well.
He got some tough shoes to fill, though. I mean,
yes, he does.
He's replacing one of the best secondary coaches in the country, college or pro, and he's coaching for a guy that is a secondary coach. So everything he says, he better, and I'm sure he backs it up, but he better, and it's obvious that's why he's hired. But, Kirby is going to question you, and that's the way he should, because Kirby's, he knows what he knows, but he's going to let the guy coach within the framework of his personality. But I just feel like that's a tough deal to come in and be compared to Mel Tucker, and hopefully – you just be objective as a player and say, look, I gotta conform to this guy because he's the guy I gotta please. But ultimately, I don't see a lot of changes in technique and style and all, because this is Kirby's baby, man. He's not gonna change a lot of that. But
it's just interesting to see. I'd heard he's from the military. He's got a military background. I'm like, well, coaches yell. What the hell's the difference between a coach and a drill instructor? I've seen the difference in a coach who could be a drill instructor, and it was very, very interesting to watch. That's why, again,
I guarantee if he could be a drill instructor, Kirby could be the head of chief of staff for the whole Army.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because he can get their attention pretty quick.
Oh, he does. And also something to note, to your point about this being Kirby's baby, what was he doing last Thursday? He's out there with Devod Wilson, and he goes, "Where's Mark Webb?" Mark Webb comes flying out there.
Boy, you just never want that guy. He
personally was working with the Stars. Running drills like a graduate assistant, like a position coach. He wants his star guys, and to play that star position, to be ready. He was working them on different techniques and different stuff.
No
Again,
question.
hands-on coach. And I'm thinking, if you're going to give me Tyson Campbell over here, and you're going to give me Eric Stokes over there, backed up with Tariq Stevenson and Tariq McGee, and then you got David Wilson and Mark Webb as your stars. Then in the back, you're looking at Lewis Sine, Richard LeCount, J.R. Reed as your safeties. That's starting to get into a really nice secondary. So
Absolutely.
Again, loaded there. Outside linebacker group, probably the most loaded we've ever seen in 25 years of covering this thing. Inside linebacker group's going to be good. Just want to see what's going to happen in that defensive line.
Speaking of really nice, though.
Really nice. Very nice. I clicked on the Overhead Doors website the other day because I want to see what new offers they got, new awards they got. And sure enough, now they have the Best of House Service Award for 2019. Of course, they still have their A-plus Better Business rating from the Better Business Bureau. So 5 stars with ELP for Air and Overhead Doors, 5 stars from Google and Air and Overhead Doors, 5 stars from the BBB. Best of Gwinnett for 2016, 2017, 2018 award. Georgia Chamber Pinnacle Small Business Award finalist 2016, 2018. They were just awarded a huge a huge deal last week when they were in Las Vegas for the charity work they do. Each year, their staff identifies somebody who is in need. Say it's an older house that has a garage door that needs to be fixed up. The person is someone who is doesn't have a lot of money. They go to that house, do the work for free, and they were given an award by the other industry professionals for that outreach.
That's awesome.
So these are people who actually, again, when I say they're customer service, they have good hearts. So they do incredible customer service and then go ahead and help other people in the community. So to get a national award, shout out to Ryan Lucy and the folks over there. Congratulations for that award. When I first spoke to them, he told me about that. Actually, I don't even think he told me about it. I think I was looking at his website and I asked him about it. He goes, "Oh, yeah, well, we try to take care of somebody here in the town." And I'm like, I need to lead with that. That's but of course, he's a modest guy. He doesn't want to go out there and talk about the fact that they do charity. That's not how he's trying to market his company, but I'm going to market it that way because I want to take care of people who take care of others. So
absolutely.
Shout out to Aaron Overhead Doors.
And they take good care of us, too.
They do. Thanks for sponsoring the show and for sponsoring the website.
We got a couple interesting questions here that I want to touch on.
While I eat, y'all do that.
Well, this is for all three of us. Ronnie Brown, he says, in your opinion, all three of you, what is the biggest draw to UGA for recruits? What is the biggest thing that pulls these guys in?
Aside from co-eds?
Strong.
Right now, I got to think it's Kirby Smart.
Sure. Yeah.
The direction he has the program going, I mean, it's a major school. It's a major football school. You're going to have 90,000+ people in the stands for all the games, But I guess to his point is what makes it better, stronger than Clemson, Alabama, stuff like. I think right now, and normally I would say it's the in-state school against the flagship, but you're getting kids from around the country. But I think right now it's that the caliber of football of which they play. It's high end. You're playing for national championships. You're playing for SEC titles. But I think it's the staff that Kirby Smart's put together, his, I don't want to say personality, but his potential. They see the direction the program's going. They want to be part of a winner. They want to. You visit Athens. You're like, this is a fantastic school. I'm gonna get a great education. I love this town. I love the support here. But it's trending upwards, and I think they want to be a part of that. I think, and there, I mean, there's a million reasons, but he says, "What's the one?"
Yeah.
Right now, I think it's
number one thing for
Kirby
most
Smart's doing.
decisions: who's your boss, who's the person you're going to be under.
There you go.
I think from our standpoint right now, it's just a question of we really got to be very careful about who we take, because there's so many guys that want to come here, and our trend over the last year and a half has been maybe we've lost some in-state guys that probably maybe a couple that wanted to come here that we didn't take, but we've really branched out on a national scale. When you look at all these guys that you list on Rivals every time I watch it, they're talking about kids from Texas and Maryland. I mean, we got 2 or 3 guys from Maryland. We're the number one favorite on. So I think it's just a question of in-state used to be 80% in-state and 20% out-of-state. But last year we had more out-of-state kids signed than in-state, didn't we?
That's why I took away my first thought would have been, hey, state pride. And I think 6 years ago you could say state pride is the big – it's not that way anymore.
But he knows from his blueprint, though, having coached at Alabama, you got to make your hay in your home state. But if you got a national name and you got that kind of a drawing power, you can go like Alabama's done and get selective great play. You look, Alabama wouldn't have won all these national championships without a guy from Hawaii playing quarterback, or a guy playing tight end from another position, or they got the number one back from California 3 years ago, the number one back from Oklahoma. Just over and over. That's what we're doing too. I mean, when we do go out of state, we get a premium guy. That's for sure.
I agree. I think that Kirby definitely tops my list as the reason why. I think too that you've seen the school get better academically over the last 20 years.
Who talks about academics? What is a football
over the last 20 years?
No, you're right.
I just didn't want to say what you guys.
Facilities.
Yeah,
you're right. The
facilities have gone. Yeah, I mean Georgia is firmly entrenched in the arms race of college football. Any aspect you can think of, coaches, facilities, education. I mean they have
academic support.
Yeah, they have put themselves right there with anybody.
And that was lacking in the past. And
Hey, when you're fighting over a nutritionist from the University of Florida, you know that you're going deep down to make these kids feel good.
Yeah, when you got Herschel Walker tweeting at her.
I think she's brought in a lot of educational type stuff about these kids, helping them, understand how to take care of themselves and fuel their bodies, but also eat right. And she's been a big help, that's for sure.
Another question here. Josh Aggie wants to know, or AG, I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that right, Josh. He says, does it get harder to recruit stud offensive linemen now that you have such a deep and talented group there?
Yes. I don't think so.
Yes.
Wow,
yes.
All right, go ahead.
No, because some of these kids, they want to play. When we ask them, what's the number one thing for you? Early playing time. That's the first thing I hear from about half of them.
Vanderbilt.
And they do.
No,
again, it's not the kid I want. I want the kid who says, I don't give a darn who you have on the field. I'm coming to play. That's the kid I want. But right. I'm just saying, when you have some of these elite guys, they look at the fact that if you're trying to get an offensive guard right now, and you're looking at what Georgia has at offensive guard, you're like, I'm not playing until I'm a junior. I don't care how good I am, Well, so I think it gets hard. I see kids get scared by the depth chart every year.
Here's what I would. A kid that was scared like that.
I would just tell them, look, we've got great players here, but every year something happens. You look at last year, we had all these good offensive linemen, but didn't bother Cade Mays. He signed here, and look what he's able to do. Didn't bother Trey Hill. Look what he was able to do. We're going to play the best guys, and sometimes you're going to get injuries and all that. Don't let somebody talking to you about playing time get in the way. If you weren't playing football, number one, where would you go to school? Where would you like to be? Who would you like to be around? Then once you start playing football, who you want to be playing with? You want to be playing with guys like you that are going to help you win, and we want guys that want to win it all. So I think playing time's certainly there, and I don't want to go against my boss here, but I do feel like that when we talked about it with Jake and with Fields about they weren't concerned about the competition. You know, they both signed here because they wanted to play for Georgia. You know what I mean? So I think it's going to be.
And then one of them left because he couldn't win the spot.
One of my my thought to a degree on this though is that offensive line, and I'm hesitant to say this because it hasn't necessarily been the case for Georgia in the last couple of years. But again, that kind of I think you can sell to these kids. It's a tough area to come in and make an impact early on. It's tough to jump right in at a tackle spot.
Should be, usually is.
Yeah, exactly. Georgia, meanwhile, seems to be putting these guys in positions of success where they can get in early and
make an
an
example of that would be 2 years ago, Wilson, the number one guy in the country, he gets redshirted. And then last year we got two guys come in here and Mays and Hill that play a lot and start. So, I mean, against the more competition than what Wilson had.
That's right.
I agree. Again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying to answer his question, I've had enough kids say that, you know, they mention the depth chart. They don't always mention it in a story. They don't always turn to the coach and say you've got too many good kids. But when they actually make their decision, you talk to them about it later, go, yeah, they were loaded. I think I can play earlier at Tennessee. Sure. I can play earlier at South Carolina. I can play earlier at Vanderbilt. And they go there.
And they get to play earlier in the bowl games. Those games start at 12 o'clock.
On January 23rd.
Well done.
No, December 23rd. Yeah,
well
you're
done.
Right. Speaking of things, a good burn, we're going to talk about our friends at Cable East for being a great sponsor of the show. We burn through their ad every day, every week, and we never mention the fact that they have absolutely no reason to sponsor our show. So big shout out to Robert Wall and their friends out in Statham at Cable East for sponsoring the show.
If you're some sort of government contractor watching us, contact them.
If you need to run fiber cable down 316 or something like that, those guys can knock it out for you. I also want to mention things that are never burned. Your Pie, the pizza company, is not a dessert company, but they do have gelato. Maybe say it with an H. They have gelato out there. They sometimes have brownies. I'm just saying. I've been out there. But if you go up to Your Pie, they have 60 locations. They're about to open 50 more. You can get a fantastic meal out of $8. You walk in, tell them, hey, I want this crust. I want this sauce. I want all these toppings. They don't charge you $1 per topping, stuff like that. You can get one absolutely loaded. You get this monster sandwich. Monster pizza. They do have great sandwiches. The No-No's Italian is my personal favorite. Swing by any of the Your Pie locations. They're all over the Southeast now. They're growing by leaps and bounds. If you want a great business, if you can't watch this show because you're working for somebody else and you hate it and you have to listen to it on the podcast on a crappy drive home, reach out to Your Pie Franchising. Start your own business. Become a multi-gajillionaire. Serving pizzas to your fellow man.
I'm going to start Googling that right now.
I'm just
Very good.
So we got practice today. After we wrap up, hopefully we'll get another couple of practices this week. We'll see. They shut down.
They got the
Saturday
clinic this week.
Okay.
Coaches clinic, and
which sometimes they also shut down because they don't want us out there working. They have a bunch of coaches on the sideline bringing the media out there. It's kind of tough to keep up with all the media guys are, so I'm not going to hold my breath that we'll get to see practice in. But some big names coming to the coaches clinic. Lane Kiffin's going to be out there.
Hey,
ladies,
the big
stay
names. Off the Tinder this week.
You got Williams. You got Williams from the Jets, and you got Peterson from the Eagles.
Yeah, so
very stellar.
Had two Super Bowl coaches here last year, so those guys are going to come in. So if you're any of the coaches in town that are high school coaches and you're coming to check out the coaches clinic, be sure to swing by Academia Brewing Company. 12,000 new cans of beer here. Fantastic food. Also swing by Champies, our good friends out there. Go to UGASports.com. We still have plenty of recruiting updates coming. You guys, how many?
We have
18, 20.
We spoke to 18 kids, I believe. Yeah, on Sunday.
Now they put up a list of kind of here's the important things each kid said. But if you want to read the in-depth stories, we still have another 15 or 14 more coming. So be sure to swing by UGASports.com. 27 cents a day. You can't beat it for the coverage.
We'll be at Under Armour camp on Sunday as well. So
Where's that?
Just keeps rolling. That'll be at Roswell High School. The next weekend, I got Charlotte. The next weekend.
Are you going to Charlotte?
Yeah, I'll be in Charlotte. So it's
The
going to be
Rivals camp in Charlotte, right?
busy time. Rivals camp in
Okay.
Charlotte. Yeah, opening is I think it's end of April up in Charlotte. So, but camp season in full effect. We're on the road.
So basically, each weekend we're going to have a ton of updates for you from all these kids that Georgia's recruiting. You can't miss a week if you want to know what's going on. And, of course, we have all the practice updates for you. So today we'll have about 4.5 reporters out at practice day. We have a big shout-out to Riley Orr, who's interning with us this week. She'll be out at practice today, too, and working with us. So be sure to read her reports from this afternoon. Of course, and the baseball team is absolutely killing it. They played Georgia Tech this afternoon.
Nobody covers it like Anthony Dash.
Nobody covers it.
Where are they playing?
Playing at Tech. And our sympathies to the Georgia Tech family.
The loss of Brandon Adams.
That's tragic. Hopefully we can find out something we can help do for that family. Our deepest sympathies to the Georgia Tech family and the Adams family. The baseball team this past weekend went 2-1 against top 10 LSU. They swept South Carolina the week previously. If you get a chance, I know a lot of people don't think college baseball, but it's one of the most fun things you can ever cover. It's one of the most fun things you can watch. So if you get a chance, pay attention to the Georgia baseball team. This is a team that could be back in Omaha. So
UGA women tennis ranked.
they won.
They're close to being one. They beat North Carolina and they're undefeated, but North Carolina's ranked ahead of them. I think the new rankings, they might come out and be number one.
Wow,
unbelievable.
So a lot of good stuff going on. It's spring in the great state of Georgia. So I know when you come in from outside and then enjoying all that pollen, be sure to read UGASports.com, and we will talk to you folks next week.
That's it for this episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast. Tune in next week for more Georgia Bulldogs news and notes from Athens.